At the end of the day, your team is the one that's out on the floor. They're the ones that are doing the job. So therefore, they're the ones that are going to have the best ideas in order to improve processes. Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Leadership and You. I am your host, Emily Baez, and this week's episode, we're going to dive a little bit more into the book of the Leadership Challenge. We are going to discuss the third exemplary practice of great leadership, and that is challenging the process. So let's dive right in. How does one challenge the process? Challenging the status quo. So the first thing is we have to search for opportunities within our environment. We have to be knowledgeable of any external changes that may be going on. We have to be knowledgeable of internal changes that may be happening. And then look within the team and within the environment to see what changes can be made to processes to improve efficiency, effectiveness, things of the sort. Speaking to your teams, for example, having shift meetings, having one-on-ones with your teams, getting that feedback, encouraging them to think outside the box, be innovative. One thing that you can do to ask for feedback is to have brainstorming sessions, have meetings where you bring together a diverse group of people, be it age, culture, experience, backgrounds, gender. All this diversity helps to bring in different perspectives so that when you do have brainstorming sessions, you have different views and different suggestions and ideas that are going to be thrown around. And different solutions that are going to come from those ideas. This may also mean that you have to hire externally to bring additional perspectives from outside the organization into the organization to remain competitive in the marketplace. In tying it to what we discussed last week, one thing you want to do is you want to find the aspirations of your team and you want to tie them into that common purpose. In tying them into that purpose, you show your team that their input is valuable. And at the end of the day, your team is the one that's out on the floor. They're the ones that are doing the job. So therefore, they're the ones that are going to have the best ideas in order to improve processes. You want to find out what it is that each individual cares about. And then you want to tie that in to not only their goals, but also the goals of the organization. You want to help your team see that vision and you want to help them understand and help them feel valued and appreciated. You want to show them that their work matters in the organization. And you also have to show as a leader not to give up. There's going to be times where proposals, ideas, suggestions, they may get shot down. For example, your team came up with an idea, you built a proposal, and it was shot down because the initial costs were too high. Show your team how to overcome that adversity. Bring everybody together, figure out how to reduce those costs, see if there's a different solution that doesn't involve any costs or lower cost, whatever the case may be. But you have to show your team that not everything is going to be a yes, and that when you do get obstacles and challenges that come into your way, you guys can overcome them and keep on moving forward and achieving those goals that you guys set and achieving that vision that you guys share. Another way to challenge the process is experimenting different things and taking risks, not being afraid to go out there and try new things. For example, if you have someone on your team that suggested using a different tool to get the job done, you try it out. If it works, it works. You keep using it. You might implement it as part of the process. And if it didn't work, then find another solution. See if another team member has a different idea for a different tool. But regardless, continue to try out new things until you figure out something that works and helps to become more efficient. One thing that a leader has to understand is that even smaller changes, even small things add up and they can lead to big results. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that an idea that an associate brought up saves 5 minutes in productivity time. This adds up. Let's say that you have 15 associates on your team. That's an hour and 15 minutes of saved productivity each day. Let's say that your team works every day of the year, gets paid $20 an hour. That's over $9,000 in payroll costs that you're reducing. And that's not including the increased productivity that's going to come from it. 5 minutes may not seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the big picture, it can really make an impact. And these are the kind of things that you want to try out because your team sees that you're trying these things out that are their ideas and you're demonstrating to your team, hey, your feedback is valuable in this company. What you have to say matters. You want to make sure that you explain the why. It's very important, especially if you can't try out a certain idea or solution. You want to make sure that you explain why that is. For example, one of my previous jobs, I had a process where the associate did something that made sense and it seemed that it would increase productivity, which it did. Because of the way the system was set up, it impacted the customer in a negative way. So while it was a great idea and it did increase efficiency, unfortunately, it hindered the customer. So in explaining that to the associate understands, hey, you had a great idea, but unfortunately, because of the way it impacts the customer, we can't do it that way. So your feedback is valuable, but there's something else that we have to consider when implementing the solution. When you have change initiatives within your organization, or if you want to implement some type of improvement, you want to make sure that you break it down. If it's a large project, you want to break that down into phases and smaller wins. You want to show the team the momentum that you're gaining as you go implementing the different things and as they are succeeding, how it's making an impact and celebrating those small wins to build that motivation within your team. For example, after you implement one phase, you want to track the progress and you want to track the results and then share those results with your team so that they see the impact that they're having by making these changes. And you want to build an environment where your people are not scared to bring solutions. They're not scared to experiment with different things. They're not afraid of failure. You want them to understand, hey, this is an environment where together we can succeed. If we fail, we'll try again. We're going to learn from the mistakes that we're making in order to continue improving. And this is how you build resilience with your teams. When they see that things don't work and that you don't give up and you're going to continue trying to find different solutions and implementing their suggestions, it shows them that regardless of any setbacks, any obstacles that you may encounter, you're going to find a way to move forward together. This helps you to foster an environment where continuous improvement is key and self-learning and self-growth is important. Demonstrating that continuous learning and continuously developing oneself helps to show your team that as the changes occur in the world and changes occur within organizations, their self-development is going to help them remain relevant in the marketplace. And it's going to help the organization remain relevant in the marketplace. So from a biblical perspective, God created us. And since we were created in his image, that means that we ourselves are creative. We are innovative. We have ideas and suggestions that we can create in order to continuously improve within our workplaces. The unique gifts that each one of us possesses gives us the ability to innovate, especially when we come together as a group to be creative. It really impacts where we work. And that is the reason why we have to have diverse groups. Now, that's not to say that when we have diverse groups, we're not going to face differences and sometimes even conflict, but that's a good thing. Jesus showed us to love one another and build up one another in love. So this helps us to overcome those differences, value each other's perspectives, and then help to bring up and create innovative solutions. And if you think about it, Jesus himself challenged the status quo. He was innovative in the way that he handled different situations and different people and how to convey his messages. For example, the story in John 8 of the adulterous woman. The leaders really weren't seeking justice. They were trying to trap Jesus. So they brought this woman out and told everyone that she was caught in the act of adultery and that she should be stoned to death as per the law. Jesus, instead of allowing it, what he did was he threw a question back at them and challenged them. Jesus' response was calm and creative. He told them that the first one without sin to throw a stone. And when he turned back around, little by little, all of the religious leaders had fallen away and only the woman was left. So in doing this, he challenged them to recognize their wrongdoing and to correct the people in a way that showed compassion and love. If we follow Jesus' example of doing things with compassion and love and challenging the processes in that manner, we build work environments where our teams are valued. We're not afraid to speak up and provide that feedback. Everyone is motivated to continuously learn and improve. So tell me what you think. How do you challenge the status quo in a way that is well received with compassion and with love for your teams? Leave it in the comments. As always, peace, love, and leadership. God bless.